evening, the Canadian election is less than 1 day away. So let's get into my prediction. The Conservatives have gained, my prediction is they'll gain about 4%. So where's that coming from? Well, the PPC was at 5% last election. I know they're down at 1. So I think Poilievre has successfully co-opted the PPC. The Liberals are up almost 10% from last election. I suspect they're gaining about 9 from the NDP collapsing about in half. The first major competitive seat is going to be Central Newfoundland. 338 has it going Conservative by less than 1 point. If you go back to the last election in this riding, the Conservatives don't have much room to gain because the PPC didn't even run a candidate. And the Liberals are probably going to gain 3 to 4 points from the NDP collapse, which will push them over the edge, potentially getting over 50%. This is why I have this seat going Liberal. The next interesting seat is South Shore St. Margaret's. This might be the closest seat of the election. The PPC did not run a candidate, so the Conservatives have probably hit their ceiling already, while the Liberals have around 8 to 10 points to gain from the NDP, pushing them up to 34, 35, maybe 36. Sorry, 45, 46, which is slightly over the Conservatives. Still extremely competitive. I have it going Liberal though. In Quebec, I have the Liberals gaining, and mainly the Quebecois dropping about 10 seats. Conservatives will do well around Quebec City, but in Montreal, the Liberals almost fully sweep, except these two. This is, even though the NDP is completely collapsing nationwide, I still think this is one of the seats that they'll pick up, and fairly easily. Jumping into the most important province, Ontario. This is a major province for the NDP, who have potential to win 3 seats, where they're the incumbent. 338 has them up in 2. I'm fairly confident they'll win Hamilton Center. London, Fanshawe is pretty much a complete toss-up. And Windsor West is still pretty much a complete toss-up, but I had the Liberals slightly ahead. I have the Greens winning one of their 2 incumbent seats in Kitchener. And I have the Liberals almost fully sweeping the Toronto area. The Conservatives still pick off a few seats. Nowhere near enough. couple interesting seats up in the north. Algoma. .338 has the Conservatives in the lead. They're probably going to gain about 4 or 5 points, pushing them to around 40. But the NDP has a lot of support here. It is probably going to collapse down and give the Liberals around 12-ish points, pushing them to into the mid-40s. Still very competitive, could go either way. In Timmins, the NDP have the lead last election. They could still ride off the incumbency factor and squeak out a victory. But I suspect the Liberals will slightly pass them. But mainly, the Conservatives are going to gain around 10% from the People's Party, leaping both Liberals and the NDP and taking the victory. So unless either the Liberals or the NDP vote consolidates around one candidate, I believe the Conservatives have the lead. In Manitoba, one of the most competitive seats between the Liberals and the NDP, you see the NDP has a large support base, even getting over 50%. Conservatives will probably go up to maybe around 29. That won't be enough to get past either the Liberals or the NDP. I still think the NDP has enough support in this district to hold on, even though they're collapsing nationwide, and with a good incumbent. Another interesting seat is Winnipeg Center, another NDP Liberal seat. Here, the NDP has less of a lead on the Liberals, where Liberals got between 10% in 2019 of winning this seat. I think that should be enough for them to pick it off this time around, though it should be close. Saskatchewan, heavily conservative. Liberals only win one seat, everything else is pretty much stay conservative. In Calgary, pretty much all these seats except Skyview are also safe conservative.
Psoriatic arthritis is tough.
In this seat, we see the Conservatives have a large fundamental lead in the district. I don't think an NDP collapse of about 8 points will make it anywhere near close enough for the Liberals to pick it off. In Edmonton, the Liberals and the NDP have these seats pretty safe. Conservatives are good in these seats. The NDP is close in this seat. They could. The People's Party is going to fall 5 or 4 points, giving the Conservatives around 40, which is already almost enough in and of itself to beat the NDP. And they will also lose votes to the Liberals, pushing Conservatives over the edge in the seat. in Nunavut have it flipping Liberal. This is a good NDP seat, usually. But the lead that the NDP has over the Liberals is just not big enough for me to have the NDP favorite. So you can see 2019, they were only at 40, which is nowhere near enough to beat the Liberals this election. Really interesting state or province where I am in disagreement with many people is British Columbia. In Vancouver itself, it's generally agreed that the NDP will hold on to one seat. In this seat here, I have the NDP actually holding on. I think their lead and their general support in the district is just barely enough. While the Liberals are in the low 20s, it just won't be enough for them to come back. The Conservatives do have a chance, but I still think they'll be in the low 20s. Not enough to beat the Liberals or the NDP. I have them sweeping, the Liberals sweeping the rest of the Vancouver area except this seat here, which would be a massive upset. In Abbotsford. This is a, as you can see, three-way race between Liberals, Conservatives, and an independent candidate who's a local Conservative who's popular and running an amazing campaign. And then their return polls, they actually have the independent candidate in the lead while the Conservative candidate is running a horrible campaign. And I've seen reports from on the ground that the independent candidate is outrunning the Conservative. So I think they'll barely pick it off. But they are at high risk of splitting the right-wing vote, as the Liberals should gain about 10%, pushing them to 35-36. Is that enough to beat the right-wing vote, which is going to be around 50-51? So that's split. You don't know. Another major upset I have is in Ladysmith. The Greens have a good candidate who won this district in 2019. The NDP flipped it, but it seems like the left-leaning vote is consolidating around the Green candidate this time around. I do not believe the Conservatives have enough, as they'll be around 31-32% to beat out a consolidated Green vote, as we saw in 2019. Just too left-wing. I think they'll pick it off. They'll hold on to their current incumbent. The NDP will hold on to their seats here. This would be a major upset. In Langford, we see this seat is going to be between the Conservatives and the NDP. And this is why I don't believe the NDP will collapse as hard. And the Conservatives don't have that much room to grow. Maybe into the low 30s. And I believe the NDP's lead is just too much to overcome. As we see, they majorly split the vote 2019, and they still got over what I believe the Conservatives will get this election. Overall, I have the Liberals winning a very slight majority,